Hi folks, thanks for joining me. I'm Steve Elmy, your host of Homegrown Hunter TV. What I'm going to do today is take you to one of my hunting properties and show you what I like to do in order to draw that big buck out during late season. I prefer to do a late deer season hunt, which is in December when the snow starts to fly. So now that the hunting rut and the gun season's over, deer have dispersed a little bit, maybe even migrated into their wintering area. So I'm going to go out today, set some baits, check some cameras, and hopefully you get to learn a couple of tips today. Let's go. So what I've got here, I've got a open field, and at the back corner, on the northeast corner, I've got myself a feeder. Now, I brought an onslaught of different stuff. As you can tell here, I've got, these look like the same bag, but in fact, they're two different products. On the tag, you'll see one's auto feeder, which I'm gonna use here. I got protein blocks, Eva Shockey's fixation. I've got buck slop, which we're gonna use here as well. And then every deer loves apples. We all know that. I'm going to show you what I like to do to add to those apples to make it a little more appealing to those white-tailed deer. Now, this is typically a baiting spot for me for 1 week's time. I know it's a lot of product, but I've also got a lot of deer in December, so I want to make sure they stay and hold in this area. Protein blocks, we're going to use that in the middle of the bush, and we're going to add some more product called corn cob, which is down in this white bag here. We'll add those two items together. Very sweet, but it's way back in the bush, and I'm not going to get back there for a couple weeks, so I want to make sure that it lasts. So the protein block lasts about 4 to 6 weeks. The auto feeder, I like to use it in a gravity feeder or those spinning feeders that you can buy on the market. Moultrie makes a fantastic variety of one. I've taken the tripod ones and kind of converted them to make them gravity feeders. I'll show you that a little later too. But then we've got the original, which is where our company started. It's what's killed a lot of deer in the past. It's also fantastic for winter feeding throughout the year. So we'll get this going here, and then we'll go back out and check another spot. Now I've got to talk to you a little bit about what's called auto feeder mix. You'll see here that it's got a mixture of corn, roasted corn, apple flavoring, vegetable oil, and mixed grains. I got to tell you something. When I first started this hunting industry, I found out about what's called ruminitis, and it's fermentation in the stomach due to lack of moisture to help break down that grain that the deer are eating. The corn itself, because it's so high in carbohydrates, when they dry it to store it for agricultural use, or whether it be cattle or deer or whichever the use is for, the corn has to be dried down to 14% moisture content. And when the deer are digesting that, if they ingest too much of it without enough moisture, it can actually ferment and rot in their stomach. It's very bad for them. So with rack stacker deer feed, it's more of a blended mix of roughage product with corn, so you're getting the protein, the carbohydrates, as well as the roughage to push it through the system, so there's no sickness to it. If you're wanting to add a little bit more to it to make it sweet, we do sell what's called buck slop. We have it in apple and for moose and elk, and this is just a pure molasses, so you can tell how thick it is here. I pour that on top. That's great. You can add it to just about anything, whether it be apples or grain or whatever you're using. And then the protein block has been here a couple of weeks. As you can tell, they've been picking and pawing at it, but it lasts a couple of weeks. So this is one spot. I'm going to take you up into the bush plot, and we're going to show you a couple of other techniques I use as well. Okay, so if you take a look behind me here, you'll see about 80 yards away, I've got myself a really nice ladder stand that we call the Taj Mahal. It's about an 80-yard shot from where I'm standing right now. This is a late December muzzleloader season. Not everybody has a muzzleloader season. Ours runs for the first Monday in December to the Sunday in December, so it's about a 7-day. It is a 7-day hunt, but this is set up specifically for a muzzleloader hunt. As we get past the muzzleloader season, I'll stop feeding at this spot and focus heavily on the destination, and that's where we're going to be going next. These are two big apple trees that I've been pruning and trimming for the last 5 or 6 years now. And this year was the absolute worst year for apple production here in Eastern Ontario. Now, because this hasn't produced any apples this year, I went and I picked up some new apples from the Feed Depot, which is a local feed dealership. And I got these apples, but I wanted to bring them back to where the apple trees are, apples are normally falling off the trees. And to spice things up, I even brought Eva Shockey's fixation. I'm gonna add that to it on top of the pile. And you'll find that the deer keep coming back because they're habitual. They're looking for those apples, and now this is just going to maintain them for a little bit while. So it keeps them traveling around your property. This is just to add to what you currently have. So the camera's telling me exactly what I was suspecting. So being that this is a destination area, standing beans, the deer are going to want to be here at dark. It's a 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock a.m. type location. I wouldn't spend a whole lot of time gun hunting this because the deer are eventually going to get here. I know by looking at aerial maps that my bedding area is to the east of here, actually northeast to the east of here, and it's a thick bedding area. What my goal is to cut them off between this destination location and the bedding. Now, this camera is also telling me that there's no shooter bucks, so I'm not going to focus a lot of time here until when the snow starts to fly. There's a lot of food here. The farmer hasn't taken the crop off yet, but I'm gonna pay attention to it. I'm just not gonna spend any time hunting here. I'm gonna go back into the bush to the staging area, and I'll hunt and focus most of my time there and hopefully stick that old and mature buck. Well, thanks for joining me, folks, on Homegrown Hunter TV. I'm your host, Steve Elmy. Be sure to check out hghtv.ca for more episodes. I hope that you learned something today that it can help you harvest that mature buck of a lifetime. We'll see you next week.